I often hear it said that the church in the Middle Ages didn't really believe in the existence of witches or sorcerers, and that this only changed in the 15th century after Pope Innocent VIII issued the bull Summis Desiderantes Affectibus, which specifically dealt with the issue. I'm aware that magic and sorcery became a sort of obsession for many people during the Renaissance and so-called Age of Enlightenment. But what was the church's attitude towards such things during the medieval period, and how common was it?
Well, it depended, because there would be sort of eruptions from here to there. It's not true to say the church did not believe in witchcraft. It did. Don't forget, it's from the Jewish scriptures we get the phrase, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." And in fact, there isn't a culture on earth that doesn't have some idea of witchcraft. That is to say, a person who sells his or her soul to whatever they consider to be the principle of supernatural evil in return for preternatural powers. And usually these people get dealt with very badly. It was true in Greece and Rome. It's true today in China and amongst pagan tribes in South Africa. It's a universal constant in human cultures, as our Amazon Synod friends will find out. I sure hope that the indigenous tribes don't get the idea that the old Spanish nun who believes in priestesses is a witch. They'll burn her. But anyway, and then they'll find out just how wonderful indigenous practices can really be. What? Anyway, I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. Hey, what are you doing? Why are you taking me away? You are a witch. No, I just said that women should be priests too. Aha, convicted. Bring the herbs. We shall stuff her mouth with herbs. I don't want any herbs. They are organic. Oh, okay.
I don't mean to nitpick, Charles, but I don't know if that was an Amazonian accent.
Well, it probably wasn't, frankly. But at any rate, I couldn't even begin to do an Amazonian accent.
Yeah, I don't know what that would sound like, but yeah.
I don't know. Between one cannibal taking a bite out of another, who knows what they sound like. Anyway,
Okay.
so the long and the short of it is that there would be from time to time, just as there were eruptions of heresy, there were eruptions of witchcraft. But it's quite true to say that it was nothing like what came in with the Renaissance, and more particularly toward the end of the Reformation. If I were to offer a theory as to why this would be, it would be because that was the time that the church was losing her grip on the spirituality of Europe. And so what do you think happened? But the other thing you've got to bear in mind, too, is that from the time of the Renaissance to the present, very often men of science have had a weird attraction to the weird. With the growth of 19th century scientificism, you had a growth of interest in spiritualism and theosophy. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, for instance, who was trained as a scientificist, and whose mentor in medicine, Joseph Bell, was the model for Sherlock Holmes, and like Sherlock Holmes, a complete unbeliever in anything, which Doyle, by the way, was not. Doyle was a flaming spiritualist, a member of the Society for Psychic Research, the Ghost Club, all this sort of thing. He was fascinated with all this stuff. He fell away from the church as soon as he left home, but he got into all this other stuff. And then the character that made him wealthy was a complete unbeliever and a scientificist. So, similarly, Jack Parsons, who you probably better know as the founder of JPL, the Rocket Man, he was also a great practicer of Crowleyite black magic. And after he took on a young partner who shared everything with him, including his wife, whom he took with him, that young partner was named L. Ron Hubbard, and he
Are
was
you
the founder of
serious?
I am. He was the founder of Scientology. All of this in Pasadena, your own neck of the woods. Well, you wonder what happened to Jack Parsons? I'll tell you. He blew himself up in his garage. But to this day, it was an experiment. But to this day, no one knows if it was a scientific or a magical experiment.
Well, what does that mean? I mean, the debate surely doesn't play itself out in that on those terms.
Actually, it does.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, why is magic an open consideration on this?
Because he was a practitioner of the dark arts and of the very darkest sort. So what killed him? Chemicals or a demon?
A demon blew him up?
Maybe.
I didn't know that kind of thing happened.
I wasn't there. I don't know.
Wow. Okay, L. Ron Hubbard. Wow, man, that's telling some strange tales tonight, Charles.
St. John's Eve is coming on.
Gosh.
We best all hide out. In fact, what I would do, St. John's Eve, I would have everyone go home early and I'd lock up the elevator.
Of course. Okay, follow-up question to this one, sub-question. What caused such a dramatic shift in people's attitudes with regard to the subject during the early modern period? Why the sudden interest in magic and the occult, especially considering the fact that this historical era is supposed to mark Europeans' transition from ignorance and superstition to rationality and science? Great question.
Well, rationality and science have a lot in common with superstition and ignorance. They're all based on things that are not necessarily true. That is to say, I'll give you an example. You know that some years ago, this lady, Mary, I forget her last name, she did something that had never been done before. She broke open a Tyrannosaurus thigh bone and discovered to her shock and horror that it was filled with organic matter, goo. Well, there are a lot of problems with this. Fossilization isn't supposed to work like that from the outside in. It's supposed to be a steady thing. Organic matter isn't supposed to last more than a few 100,000 years, or a million tops. Not however long since the Tyrannosaurus walked the earth, unless, of course, they walked the earth a lot more recently. So what do you get out of this? You get out of it that we don't know what fossilization is. We don't know how long it takes. We don't know anything about anything. As you can imagine, she was attacked brutally. Eventually, because enough people kept discovering the same thing, breaking open bones that never, or x-raying bones that had never been examined that way before, it turns out this is a fairly common phenomenon. So the attacks on Mary stopped. But science at the moment, paleontology at the moment, refuses to look at the implications. And I can understand, because the implications are scary. They mean that we don't know what we think we know. Nobody likes that.
Yeah, they don't like to question.
No, well, who does? Because think of everything we've based, the entire structure of thought, of scientific thought, that's based upon the idea that we know what fossilization is and that we know for certain how to date things. If we don't know that, then we don't know anything we think we know.
I don't understand why that lady was attacked. I mean, she just discovered it. She just accidentally discovered this, and this thing happened. And she didn't put forth a thesis or anything,
No.
or a theory. It's just like, oh, oops, this happened. Oh, no. So I don't understand why she would be attacked. She didn't do anything.
Oh, yes, she did. She introduced uncertainty. In another day, at the time, she'd have been burned as a witch. At least by scientists.
I mean, well, I still don't understand what there is to attack. Like, no, this didn't happen. No, you
Well, that was the
falsified it.
first reaction. That was the first reaction. And then it turned out not only did it happen, but it's a not uncommon occurrence. And that it's very upsetting. Now, the period when the church really began to lose its grip on the intellectual minds of Europe was indeed that period when both scientificism on the one hand and occultism on the other began to really jump up. In the early 19th century, they spoke of the occult revival in Europe, which was at the same time that they were making so many scientific breakthroughs. And for the same reason, with the truth of the faith sort of shadowed or withdrawn somewhat, a big vacuum opened. What's going to fill that vacuum? Stuff. And as G.K. Chesterton put it very, very well, when man will not believe in God, it's not that he believes in nothing, it's that he'll believe in anything. And as I say, over the course of the 19th century, I mentioned theosophy and all that, but gosh, New Thought, Christian Science, Mormonism, spiritualism I touched on, all this stuff came in an endless stream, especially in America. I mean, we'd been creating weird sects since the Puritan days. We just started cranking them out for the mid-19th century on. Every time you turned around, there was a weird something, a temple of light, or something of this sort. You remember the great line, the temple that taught brain breathing, the secret of the Aztecs. What happened too in America is that the center of weird religiosity started with the Puritans in New England, which is understandable because the God of the Calvinists was obnoxious and annoying. So people sought all kinds of alternatives, some of which were pretty diabolical, literally. But then, in the immediate aftermath of the Civil War, the center of the weird creation of cults moved from New England and environs to the Midwest, around Chicago and places like that. And there it sat just for a couple of decades. At about the 1880s, 1890s, it found fairer, more fertile ground, where it's been ever since. Can you guess where that is? That golden land of opportunity for every psychic and swami under the sun.
California?
Ah! Southern California, SoCal. You betcha. We got us more temples of light than you can shake a stick at. We got us more deities than MGM has stars in their lot. We got it all, you ladies and gentlemen. You need a deity, we got him. It's great. We got L. Ron Hubbard even. We got the whole thing. We have Scientology. We have the Golden Dawn. We have every imaginable variety of Eastern religion. We have Wicca. We have Theosophy, of course, Anthroposophy. Ladies and gentlemen, if it's weird, we got it.
Scientology, that was big in Hollywood too. You had a lot of, I think, like Nick Cage, John Travolta. You had a lot of Scientologists.
Tom Cruise.
Oh, excuse me, Tom Cruise, of course. Who could forget?
The king of the Scientologists. Well, see, what a lot of these things, and Scientology is a good example, offer is being in touch with spiritual realms without having to work for it through trying to lead a moral life. I mean, one of the great ways the devil has always attracted us is the idea of being spiritual, being in touch with the spirit realm, whatever that might be, without having to worry about any nasty old rules and morals. Hence, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. Well, what does that mean? It means I feel in touch with something beyond, but I don't have to stop sleeping around. In fact, I could incorporate sleeping around into my religion and make it a temple prostitute sort of thing. I'm not exaggerating.
No, I
Um,
know.
I wish I were.
No, I was just laughing at the walk. It was like Frankenstein or something.
Well, I'm just radiating whatever I'm radiating. Oh, God. It's
Okay.
so sad, really.